I entered the compartment, and there was a young girl sitting there looking out the window. And put my suitcase under the bed in the compartment. It was for 4 people. So there were 4 of us then in the compartment.
Just like now, yeah?
Just like now.
So it was a bit like this, the situation?
A little bit, yeah. 2 men and 2 women.
Okay.
And the man who said he was a wrestling coach from Ukraine took out a bottle of cognac and offered and started pouring everyone drink. And I think he probably put a sedative in my drink. The girl who identified herself as Masha Ivanova began to actively conduct a conversation. She came over and sat down next to me, this Masha Ivanova, and stupidly I began kissing her. And I suppose, had I been more experienced in the Soviet Union, or had I been smarter, I would have understood that this was a dangerous situation. But, and in fact, there was a part of me that did understand that this was a dangerous situation, that things like this didn't happen by chance. But I was new to the country. I thought maybe this is the way things are done in the Soviet Union. And in any case, they were both so attractive. And I was unmarried, 29 years old, and accustomed to this kind of thing, unfortunately. So I went along with it. And I got into bed with Masha Ivanova in the bunk up there, and the wrestling coach in the bottom bunk, and the lights went out. And for the next couple of hours, was not much really aware of anything except I hazily understood that there was some activity in the compartment, and I had a dream even about my suitcase. But when we woke up, I bent down to get my suitcase, and I found that in the place where my suitcase should have been, there was no suitcase. There was nothing at all.
All kinds of things in it. What?
Well, I mean, the most important, first of all, my notes about the dissident movement, that was gone. The addresses and the names and addresses of the people in Estonia who I was supposed to meet, that was also gone. We arrived in Tallinn, and after reporting the theft, I was driven by the local police to my hotel. I was standing in line waiting to check into the hotel, and I noticed a small man with sandy hair and sharp features. He later identified himself as Mart Niklus, and he was trying to get my attention. He walked up to where I was, surrounded by police, and he cleared his throat loudly and reached out his hand as if to shake hands. I took his hand, we shook hands, and I felt that he had put a small rolled up piece of paper in the palm of my hand. When I got up to my room, I opened the piece of paper, and it said, "Call such and such a number in Tallinn from an automatic phone." At that point, I really began to feel as if I was a spectator at my own play. And it began to be extremely interesting because I had no idea what was going to happen next. I called the number and a man answered. He spoke Russian with a heavy Estonian accent. He said to meet at 1 p.m. in front of Tallinn's main department store. I met him, and he led me down a street and into the hallway of an old apartment building. The door opened in a first-floor apartment. He walked into that apartment. I followed behind him, and suddenly the door shut behind me. The person who appeared to be the leader of the group, in Russian but with a thick Estonian accent, said, "Our whole movement may be in danger. Why were you with the police at the railroad stations?" And I said, "I lost my suitcase on the Riga to Tallinn train, and I think you know where it is." And at that point, the leader of the group suddenly seemed to take offense. He said, "Listen, I spent 10 years in the camp." Then he pointed to another, in the camps. He then pointed to another person who was sitting around the table, said he spent 8 years in the camps, and another, he said he spent 6 years in the camps. You're not going to come here and treat us like a bunch of niggers. I was completely taken aback by that remark. Here I had never experienced anything of what these people had experienced. And I was coming to Estonia, putting them in danger and then accusing them when they had possibly done nothing wrong and were in fact victims of my own stupidity. I said, well, do you have any identification? Can you show me some identification? And they said, no, we don't show any identification. I said, well, that proves you're from the KGB. And they said, you're wrong. Identification doesn't prove anything. The KGB can produce any kind of false documents that they want. And again, the leader of the group, the one person who it seemed had an intelligent and I thought a rather humane expression, said to me, listen, don't put your trust in documents. You have to believe what's in your heart. They said that we still want to talk to you. We want, what the officials say is happening in Estonia is not the truth, but it's too dangerous right now. Meet Niklus at 10 o'clock in front of the department store, and we'll try to make sure in the meantime that you're not being followed. I met Niklus that night, but he said it was too dangerous to talk. We arranged to meet instead at 4 p.m. the next day. In the morning I had official meetings and afterward went to the upper city. And I turned and looked and I could see that I was being followed, that someone in a gray jacket was hurrying up the steps and was actually not that far behind me. At that point I realized that I had to elude that guy in order not to take him back with me to the meeting with the dissidents. For a moment I thought I had lost him, but then just as I was about to turn the corner around the church, I looked back and I saw him coming. I came here, went into the entryway of the church and waited. Niklus again told me it was too dangerous to meet, and we arranged to meet in Moscow a week later. I left Tallinn. When I returned to Moscow, I got a call from a Latvian and a Lithuanian dissident. We met and began driving around in my car. They asked me why I had not met the Estonian dissidents. I told them that I had spent 2 days with the Estonian dissidents. They said the Estonian dissidents never heard from me. I stopped the car. If I didn't spend those days with the dissidents, I asked, who did I spend them with? The Lithuanian dissident answered, the Estonian KGB. But what was the point, I asked. The Soviet Union is a land of miracles, he said, and from time to time, the KGB likes to create reality.